Hi, my name is Keith Cooper, Northlight Images, and in this short video I'm going to show an accessory I was using when testing a camera this morning. Fairly basic stuff. It's an L bracket. Camera I was testing was a Fuji GFX100S, and I was specifically testing it with Canon tilt-shift lenses. Now I'm going to be doing some more stuff about this because I'm interested in seeing how well my Canon tilt-shift lenses that I use for my architectural photography work on this 100 megapixel sensor, a larger sensor, to see what the coverage is like, things like that, whether the image quality is good enough. Now, I've used for quite a few years a Rogeti L bracket here on my Canon 5DS, and it's a nifty bit of kit. It's machined out of one bit of metal. It's solid, it's got levels in it, it's very nice to use. So I was really pleased to be able to get hold of a similar L bracket, similar but different, for the GFX100S. Works for the 50S, the latest version of that one as well. But I'm just testing the 100S here. Now, like all L brackets, it just fits underneath at the back. Now, the nice thing about it is that because it's all machined out of one bit of metal, it fits very snugly. I'll just quickly tighten this up. One bit feature this shares with the other one I've got here is there's this little coin underneath for tightening things up, and there's a magnet that holds it in place. Now it's got bubble levels, so you can use that. You can use the levels inside. It seems to be quite accurate. Has two different settings for screwing it to the camera. One allows it to extend more so that it's easier to use with cables, and it will even fit with the cable protector that the GFX100S comes with. So there we go, that's it. It's a normal Arca Swiss type bracket there and on the side, so it's really quite quick to use and it's solid. You don't have to keep screwing the into the tripod knot. L brackets are something that I've used with my various cameras over the years, and if you find yourself swapping between portrait landscape orientation at all often, it's worth getting one. And if you can find one that's specifically made for the camera you've got rather than a general purpose one, you find them more robust. They're less likely to move. I mean, of course, if you just attach them tight enough, they'll be fine. There are generic ones available, but these, the Rogeti ones, I just like the way they're made. They're only about 115 grams weight. I think this one here is. I was using it this morning, and here's the picture. There's the TS-E 17 shift lens on the GFX. I've got it in landscape orientation there, shifted fully upwards. I've been having a look at, and it works well. It was certainly well enough that I would be happy using it. And when it's shifted up like that, I've got free access. I'm using it here on the Rogeti. I got the Rogeti T32 tripod, which I've done a video about that, and also the Rogeti geared head with it, which is particularly good for the kind of stuff I do for architecture work because it's geared so you can adjust it all the sort of movements you want. This is great for landscape, architecture, interiors use where you need precise settings. Bubble levels everywhere on this and in the camera as well, so if you get something like you really have to work hard to get a picture on the skew with this, but as I say, I've covered this is carbon fiber legs on this. I've covered this elsewhere. This is just about a relatively simple accessory, but one that is really useful. Now, things I was doing, just mention a bit of what I was testing here. I tested also the TS-E 24, so 24mm lens. Remember that a 17mm lens is a 17mm lens, whatever camera you put it on. So all you get, if you have the camera here set in 35mm mode, it crops the image to the equivalent of a 35mm full frame sensor. So it's exactly the same image coverage as I get on the 5DS here. Slightly more megapixels, newer sensor, better dynamic range, but it's broadly similar. If you put it onto the medium format setting, you've got the larger sensor. It's a slightly different aspect ratio, 4:3 rather than 3:2, and what I'm looking for is to see whether the coverage of the lens is good enough. I'm using a Fotodiox adapter here so that the aperture controllers or the electronic control works fine. So there we go with that. There's the side view. You can see the coin underneath there, and a nice bit just having it with a magnet, because it's the sort of thing you'll never have it when you need. And the adjustment positions there, and that's in, and there we go, that's looking at it in portrait mode. Just as an aside, some of the things from a quick, I mean, I took a load of photos and I'll be doing more, and I'll be doing a specific test of this, but my initial thoughts are that you get at extreme shift, you get a little bit of vignetting, both in the corners where you're shifted, which you'd expect anyway, but you get a little bit of mount vignetting as well. Now, later this year, I'm going to be testing the Fuji's own tilt shift lenses, which I expect to perform, very well on a camera like this. But I've got already a 24 and a 17. Now, they're 24 and 17 on either camera, you just get more coverage on this. So the 24 on this gives a wide coverage per 20mm. I can't remember the precise ratio of it, but it's going to be wider than 24. You do notice it, the 17 is very wide. Now, I looked at a Laowa 15mm shift, and I've looked at a Laowa 20mm shift as to what they're like on different cameras as well. But one other little bit I'll just finish off with is I tried the 400 megapixel multi-shot while I was out using this, and it's, well, at least it's raw files you get. You have to process the files. It takes 16 shots. You have to process, if you want the high resolution version, you have to process the images separately to produce a DNG file. And for outdoor use, any movement of anything will cause artifacts. Now, I'll come back to this when I do show some more testing on it. But what it suggests to me is that, and I was pretty certain I knew this anyway, is that the multi-shot on this is the sort of stuff I will use for precision studio work. There are occasional bits of work I do where 400 megapixels on a frame like this would be very useful in terms of detail. This is very specialized macro work, so I'm going to have to investigate that as well. But outdoor, you're going to get things move, any movement. The combining software that combines the raw files, the 16 raw files, gives you a 400 megapixel image, some of which looks good, some of which any slight movement, and that includes clouds or anything moving, bits of grass, can produce artifacts, and but it's not really meant for it. The Canon version of it and the R5, you may have seen quite a few people commenting on. I've looked at that. That one feels very much a version 0.9 software release. It does do it, but it combines the images in camera and gives you a JPEG. You're stuck with a JPEG image. So, that's... it's a good idea. It shows where Canon is going. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do when they decide to do it properly, because I'm sure there are far more features that they're developing and working on that they can extend it. This initial bit, I know a lot of people have said, God, what a Canon plan at, with this sort of 400 megapixel stuff. I can see exactly why they're doing it, and I think that when they get it right, it'll be very good. I wish there was a bit more software available too for this one. I tested in 2019 the Panasonic S1R, and that has a multi-shot stuff. Now, it's got two modes. One mode which assumes there's no movement. Second mode assumes that if there is movement, it detects it, and it just uses imaging from one image, scales it up. So the S1R will give you high resolution with moving water, trees. I've got some outdoor shots. I'll put a link, if you're curious about it, I'll put in the notes, I'll put a link to my S1R review where it's got quite a lot of info about that extra detail. Relevant to this, not to this one, and also to the R5 when it's done properly. Although I suspect we may have to wait until the R5 Mark II or the R1 until we see it done properly. Canon want to use it as a selling point, I'm sure. But the gist of it with this from my testing is that my tilt shift lenses work very nicely on this camera. So, do I fancy getting one? Well, there's always time to go out and buy a lottery ticket. Anyway, I hope that's of interest. I've got lots more stuff coming while I've got this here for a couple of weeks to do some more testing. So if you've got any questions, let me know, because I do appreciate the questions, because they give me ideas to test things, and they also make sure that I actually try things out rather than thinking of them after the camera's gone back. So there you go. But if you got one of these, I would highly recommend one of these angle brackets, L brackets. Both, there's the one there, there's a Sony version as well, but there's the Canon one, there's the GFX100 one. So thanks for watching. Oh, please do subscribe to the channel, it is appreciated, and goodbye.